Welcome to the Ransomware Battleground, where we dive into the world of cybersecurity and hear firsthand from those that are deep in the fight to protect your data and peace of mind. Think your network is secure? Let's check out how secure you really are with this week's chat, Double Extortion Ransomware. I'm joined today with Paul Fredrickson, cybersecurity consultant, most recently with Dell, and we have a little fun today with a quiz. Do you think you get 100%? Join us and see if you've earned your tasty beverage of choice. I'm your host and moderator, Sia Yasa-Tornrat. Before we get started, I've got to give a shout out to our sponsor, Airgap, the best defense against ransomware. With the Zero Trust isolation platform, Airgap confines ransomware to a single device. Put an end to threat propagation and protect your infrastructure in minutes, not months. And now, let's enter the battleground. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Ransomware Battleground. I'm Sia, and today we are joined by my favorite co-host, Mr. Paul Fredrickson. He is a cybersecurity consultant extraordinaire. Welcome back, Paul.
Hey, Sia, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing absolutely wonderful. And let me just tell you, talking about double extortion ransomware gets me doubly excited.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey. It's an exciting thing to talk about.
Oh, I know. Okay, kids. So let us talk about how do we define double extortion? Because I've got my own definition and I'd love to hear your definition. So let me just kick off with mine.
All right.
So the way I understand double extortion is basically you've got a hacker that encrypts your files and says, okay, why don't you pay me some nominal funds and I will decrypt and give you your files back to you. The double extortion where it kicks in is, oh, and by the way, those files, yeah, I still have them. And if you don't want me to leak it to a website somewhere with your data, you may want to pay me additional monies. That's my definition of double extortion. So, Paul.
I can't really argue with that one. I mean, it's an evolution because, right, the first type of a ransomware was like, we're going to encrypt your laptop and you're going to pay us some money and then maybe we'll send you the keys to unencrypt it. But then they figured out that they could get 2 for 1 on this, right? Why just go back to the wallet once when you can go back twice? And this goes back for a long time. And I like to bring everything back to Vikings because I'm Scandinavian, and Scandinavians love to talk about Vikings. But when the Vikings first went after, all the treasure and plunder down in France and specifically Paris, the first time they went there, they sacked the city. And the king gave them 7,000 pounds of silver to go away and to go back up to Scandinavia and to leave them all alone. So the good Vikings said, that's awesome. Thanks very much for all the silver. We'll put it in our boats and we'll go back home. Then as soon as they got home, they unloaded all the silver, turned the boats back around, said hi to the wife, and then they came back down and then they sacked Paris 3 more times.
3 more times? Oh my gosh. If you think about it, the Vikings were like, we've got a bunch of rich wussies here, I guess, for the lack of a better term, yeah?
Well, no, they just know that they were willing to give up the money. And that's kind of the reason why, like just today in the news, it was the game manufacturer Cyberpunk 2077, right? They just announced that they weren't going to pay, right? Because they didn't want to incentivize, double and triple taking of money out of their wallet. Because, if you give somebody money, then they're going to keep coming back. It's simple. That's the way extortion has always worked.
And that's something that I've actually talked to other folks about as well as like, there is that debate of like, do you pay up or do you just say, I'm good? It kind of reminds me of, do you remember J. Paul Getty, the Getty Museum in California, huge collector. He has an actor named Balthazar Getty. Well, he was a rich oil magnate, one of the richest, back in the day. And he had a son that got kidnapped and they held him for ransom. And they said, we'll cut your son's ear off if you don't pay us.
Oh, yeah.
And J. Paul Getty is notoriously cheap and he didn't pay. And then guess what he got in the mail? His son's ear. Yeah. I mean, so the idea of like, nope, we're not going to negotiate. We're not going to deal with these hackers and whatnot. It's absolutely fascinating to me. Yeah. So Paul, are you ready for a quiz?
Sure.
All right. I'm in the mood for a quiz. I know I'm all about the pub and I love the trivia. So I decided to put some trivia questions in front of you. Have a little bit of fun today.
And I'm going to earn a beer if I get all these questions right.
You will at the end of it. If you get it right, only if you get it right. Okay. Ready. So question number 1, Question number 1, my
All
friend.
right.
You're going to have 3 real world examples. Only one is not real. Okay.
Okay.
So number 1, there was a company, a business that had outsourced its IT or portions of it for their client who happens to be part of the government, of a government institution. They were hit with the Babuk ransomware. They had discovered that Babuk had been there for 3 weeks sitting in the network.
Mhm.
And the challenge around it was that in their double extortion, they said, if you did not pay our ransom and we will release the data, that data was actually results of COVID tests. That's number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, this particular organization was hit by the Leslie Gina hacker group, and they demanded $1 million in Bitmoji coin. The hackers' note started out with wah ha ha. Company did not pay out and got sold to the dark net. Company number 3, or option number 3 here, is it was one of the largest software organizations. They were hit by the Clop hacker group, and they were forced to shut down internal systems and internal help
Mhm.
desk. Now, they claim it did not affect core customer-facing services or cloud-based services, but the hackers did ask for 20 million and they didn't pay. So guess what? That Clop hacker group sold it to the darknet, including employee ID, passport
Ooh.
information, internal emails, and financial docs. So of the 3, which one didn't happen?
Well, yeah, I'm going to kind of go around the one where they were paid with a coin that doesn't exist, because I don't think there's a Bitmoji. I know there's a Dogecoin and there's there's Bitcoin, but I don't think that there's any Bitmoji coin right now.
Ding, 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 ding. You win number 1. Good
All right. I'm
job.
going to go get drunk now. I'll be back.
No, not so fast, sunshine. We're on to question number 2, okay?
Oh, there's another
Alrighty.
one. All
Oh,
right.
yeah. And everyone play along that's listening. Which of these is not a double extortion ransomware? Cuba,
All
Cirque de
right.
Sister, Pay to Key, or Avedon?
All right. Well, I'm going to go with the longest one, the Cirque de Sista.
Yay! Ding, 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 ding. And by the way, Sister is kind of a nickname of mine, so Cirque de Sister was like homage to myself there. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, that's it. Put yourself in the question. That's
Hey,
always good.
I figured why not, This is going to be very difficult. Okay, number 3, sir. Ready?
All right.
Who is credited for launching the double extortion ransomware attack as we know it today?
Ooh, I'm thinking about corn dogs, so that would be maize.
Ding, 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 ding. Congratulations. All right, sir. You've earned yourself a beer, but after
All
our
right.
conversation, not
All
now.
right. Okay. Well,
So
I
would
can
you?
have 2 then too.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you'd have one for me. That's great. So yeah, no, thanks for playing along. And I thought it'd be kind of fun
All
to
right.
just kind of throw out these types of situations that are out there, because double
Yeah.
extortion ransomware does exist. It's happened in the cloud,
Oh, yeah.
not cloud. It happens now around the world. And if I just may go back to the 3 options of the real world examples I gave you, the one I
Mhm.
made up, but the other 2 was Software AG and Serco. And Serco was the one that they had a contract with the NHS Test and Trace organization within the
Mhm.
UK. And so, I mean, you can imagine under the pandemic, people
Oh,
not
yeah.
knowing their data and knowing if they got infected or not. I mean, it's insane to me. And then Software AG, the fact that they said, "Nah, we're good. We're not paying 20 million," is just
Yeah.
mind-boggling to me.
Well, they don't want to fund. I mean, because a lot of these groups, the money is going directly into terror organizations. Why would, and like in the first example we were talking about, like they're going to keep coming back asking for more and more again. So it's, you can't keep paying an extortionist, right? I mean, it's,
Exactly. But darn it. I mean, but then sometimes you have to get that mission critical data back and oops, we really screwed up.
well, I mean, I think what we're talking about is the sponsor of this podcast, right? I mean, you have to have a way to prevent that data from getting out there in the first place. That brings that's a perfect segue into the sponsor of this podcast, Airgap, and their zero trust networking solution, right? I mean,
You,
if your data never gets out there, you don't have to worry about this.
You're right, with a zero trust isolation platform. And I'm not trying to pitch them or anything like that. But the
Yep.
more I've been learning about all these ransomware attacks, the more I'm actually loving Airgap as a layer of security
Yes.
to fight against this, because you got to trust that everyone is not everyone is good, whether you have good intentions or not, or just simply ignorant, right? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, so there is this list, and I'm going to give credit to Lawrence Abrams, who is the core writer of bleepingcomputer.com. So shout out to him. I saw this list that he put together of the list of ransomware leak sites, and it's absolutely amazing. If you look at this list, and guys, you can just
Mhm.
Google it and find it, and I can put it in the notes. Most of these double extortion attacks, they're like went gangbusters in 2020. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
with the
It's when
pandemic,
everybody started working from home. So, I mean, there's a much larger attack surface.
it's incredible to me. So yeah, no, so let's, like, I don't want to go down the entire list or not, but there's some that kind of highlighted to me, and I would like your opinion on it, because, and you tell me why. I don't know why I just got fascinated by it, but like, so for example, so Conti or Conti, I think it's called Conti. This is the successor to Ryuk ransomware, and we talked about
Mm.
Ryuk in a previous podcast on Ransomware Battleground. So shout out to the Ryuk discussion, but
The ransomware as a service.
oh no, Ryuk ransomware. So I did another episode on that prior to you.
Oh,
It was a
well, if
it was
I
a
wasn't there, it didn't happen. So,
right,
that's
exactly. Exactly. It's a pre-Paul
Oh,
podcast.
okay.
But I was shocked when I saw the stat. So it was discovered out in the wild in August 2020, or no, I'm sorry, the leak site they posted. So the website that they host all their
Mhm.
leaks went live in August 2020, but they just were discovered in June of 2020 with 26 victims between June and August. That's 8 weeks, and they had 26 victims. I mean, I don't know the
Oh,
list
yeah.
of the victims, but holy smokes.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's gone from, security as a cost center to security is now mandatory, or you're going to end up on the front page of Ars Technica.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Just like what
Mhm.
Cyber, was it Cyber 2770? Like,
Cyberpunk 2077. I don't particularly play the game myself, but I mean, just because they were a little late bringing my video game to market doesn't mean they necessarily need to have all their source code stolen
no
and
kidding.
then be ransomed to and locked out of all their servers. So now they can't even update anything, and then someone's probably gonna publish their game out to the web.
You know what's funny about that whole hack though to me is because there have been a lot of gaming companies, gaming creators that have been hacked. And I didn't even
Mhm.
think about this, but it absolutely makes, at first I was kind of like, why would you pick on a gaming company, right? They're just making games. But what an idiot I am in the context. Video games has surpassed Hollywood and
Yeah.
music industry, and it's like over $1 billion a year and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that they're getting hacked, and the fact that all of their content is all digital, their
Mhm.
assets is pure digital. I can see where that would be a huge target from here on out, especially
Oh,
as
yeah.
we grow. And shout out to Esports Future Eye Podcast Network and Esports Future Eye Esports Future Eye Media in general. They do everything all esports, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
talk about it, and we talk about that very frequently about the growth.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you remember back to the Sony hack, when they not locked everybody out of the Sony game network, and people were furious. They were they were losing their minds because they couldn't play whatever game they wanted to against their buddy.
Absolutely insane. Yeah. So that was my little non sequitur. Sorry.
All
There's
right.
another one that another double extortion attack that had come out. Cuban ransomware. Nothing really special about that except for the fact that I thought it was funny. I actually looked at their website, their leak website, and it's like
Mhm.
got a guy with a Cuban cigar, and he's like, "Welcome," and then protect your data better. And it was just kind of a smart aleck thing that I thought, you know,
Oh, like the beer commercial guy, the most interesting guy in the world, like that kind of guy.
well, it wasn't that guy, but yeah, they had an image on there.
All right.
So the other thing too that I want to talk about more is so Nephilim ransomware, which I thought was funny because we just did a previous episode talking about ransomware as a service,
Mhm.
and Nephilim, I don't know if I'm saying it right, was actually the next generation of the Nemty ransomware, which was actually leveraging ransomware as a service. Their next
Mhm.
iteration of it, because they got caught, or they just they recruited more experienced hackers to develop Nephilim in March 2020. And I thought this was interesting because their first technique was leveraging ransomware as a service. And then the next go around, they actually opted not to, which I think we could talk about. And then you can look back in our previous podcast talking about ransomware as a service, which, Paul, you are on.
So it's a good one. Yeah.
So it's one worth listening to. But their website is called Corporate Leaks, which to me, I thought from a branding perspective, if I was like learning about, corporate, corporations that are getting hacked, Corporate Leaks actually would stand out to me. It just seemed to be more branding perfect, I guess.
Oh yeah, well, once this information gets out in the world, I mean, it's the cat's out of the bag, the horse is out of the barn. I mean, whatever you want to call it, it's out, and it's once that information is out, it might not be put on a nice website for somebody, but maybe it'll come up on the dark web, like we were talking about earlier, and you can say, give me some money and I'll give you whatever, intelligence I have on this one company.
Right. Absolutely. So I do want to do one last one to point out with Maze, right? So they were known as a Maze cartel. What I didn't realize was they had affiliates so quite a few of these things, these guys on the list here, they actually would publish it to Maze's website link, because I guess they were so pervasive, they were so successful. I mean, they hit Allied Universal, Chubb, City of Pensacola. I mean, some real high profile attacks. I thought it was interesting that the others would actually post on their link, and so they didn't have to maintain their own website. So when Maze went down in November 2020, it almost felt like a lot of these had to find their new home.
Well, I mean, it's like everything with computers, it's a collaborative medium, and why can't, they always talk about how companies want to collaborate more back and forth. Why can't the hackers collaborate more back and forth?
Right.
Because you're building on the technology of somebody else. Nobody does this all by themselves. They do this as a community effort, and everybody in the community has a different idea of why they're doing it. Like some of these groups are hacktivists and they're trying to do it to, try to point out an injustice in the world or something that they want to do. But there are probably also on the side, getting a little funding for themselves, to buy a new laptop.
Well,
So it's a very gray, like, you're 60% good, 40% bad sometimes, then, you can flip around. It gets a little weird.
so you brought up a good point then. So I actually had in my notes here is hacker groups with a heart. I mean, and then you told me they're called hacktivists, right? So let's talk about this a little bit though, because so Maze shut down because, like you said, like they said, look, it can be done. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves, and we're shutting down. Now, I read some articles that indicated that they said they're just gearing up for another round of something else. They're done with Maze and they're moving on. Is
well,
that
it's all well, it's also you have to move around, right? Because people are coming after them. They're not, they can't be static. Because if you remember the early days of like the Pirate Bay, right? You remember how many times that moved around? Bless you.
Pardon me, thank you. Yeah, no.
And it kept moving around, and first it went down to the Bahamas, and then it was off of that crazy server platform that was in an old British military base that was like an old gun base against the Nazis. Some guy with a bunch of generators and servers out in the middle of the sea, and he was like, this is my own data center. And it's like, yeah, it is, until the British, roll up in a destroyer or something like that and say, get off.
Yeah.
Then your data center is gone. But it kept moving around, and all these hacker groups, they kind of have to do the same thing, because they're talking, a less hacker version of that is Parler. Like Parler got kicked off of AWS. I don't care to discuss why, because I'm trying to stay away from politics and everything like that. But they were literally talking about getting hosted over in Russia. And then, the people who are trying to stop Parler went against the Russian sites, because they also are the same place where like 4chan and, all the other like really nasty parts of the internet had to go over to. And I think they went after them by trying to take away their IP space, because somebody figured out that their IP space was, it's geographically based, if that makes sense. Like the allocations of IP are tied to a country. So if you're trying to take US IP addresses and move them over there, and normally they don't really go after it that hard, but I guess you could, so they sent a letter to the authorities that manage the IP space, and I think they got a couple thousand of their IP addresses back. And I don't know that it stopped them, but it didn't help them.
Wow, that's crazy. That is crazy. So, okay, so going back to the hacktivism then is, and I kind of want to talk about Babuk because that's like the latest one. And I saw this notification, or I saw their list of what they won't attack and what they will attack, because the others seem to be the naughty naughties, like the baddie baddies. Babuk apparently, in the group behind it, I mean, they said that they're excluding hospitals except private plastic surgery clinics and private dental clinics, nonprofits, any nonprofit, non-profitable charitable foundation, and then they said except the foundations who help LGBT and BLM.
Okay.
So I have to. So I'm trying to remember that. Are they saying they're not going to attack BLM and LGBT, or they're going after those?
I'm not sure on that.
So they're like, I know I have to double check that one too. But anyway, schools.
But they have a code, right? I mean,
They
I think
seem to have a code.
They have a code, and I don't know if the code is static. I would assume it's not static. But you know, I guess it's better that they have a code, you know, even as situational as it is. But
and as fluid as that code is, I mean,
oh yeah, well, and it's 1 week they're going to different parts, you know, so they're not exactly like Ronin walking around looking for the next highest master, you know, like the movie or the old, I don't know what you want to call it, the old book. It's not a book. Story of the Ronin.
Is it like an anime? What's Ronin?
Well, no, you never saw the movie Ronin?
No.
Well, you should.
Am I a slacker? Okay.
Mental note. You should go watch it. It's a good movie. But I mean, it's an ex-samurai not technique, but a tale about samurai who lost their king, or not the king. What do they call it?
What are their warlord?
They lost their lord. So then they were roaming around the country looking for a new lord, and they were taking odd jobs as they were going. It was basically like a mercenary.
Okay.
Type of a role. That's
funny. Well, and okay, the last bullet point, I just want to, for me as an entrepreneur, they will not attack small businesses of revenue less than 4 million. Thank you.
No,
not at 4 million yet.
That means you need to work on being attacked.
Well, apparently I'm a charity according to Babuk people, and I'm okay with that right now. So, okay. I mean, again, going back to what we're all talking about here with double extortion ransomware, Paul, I mean, from your perspective and your ivory tower, you're looking at it, do you see an end of double extortion, or what do you think?
No, it's a step in the evolution. It's the cat and mouse game. This thing is just going to ping pong back and forth, you know, so you have to go back to, how do I mitigate against this? Is it something like you're using Airgap so you can stop it before your information gets out there? Yeah. And you're going to have firewalls. You're going to have all kinds of different technologies. You can't just have a single line of defense anymore. You can't say like, oh, I bought a firewall, or I bought, a scanner for my laptop. It's all going to be fine. You have to have multiple versions of this so that you can have a chance that if and when you get hacked in this kind of situation, you have something against it. Because if not, you're just going to lose your data. And then once your data is out there, then, you're in trouble.
Or it's a question of like, how much value is your data to you if you want it back?
Oh yeah. Right? Well, I mean, presumably a lot of the people now have backups, so like the game developer, they have all their source code and their software. However, what does that mean once once the extortionists put it all out there on the internet? Like, are they going to go out of business? Probably not. But is it going to cause them tons of trouble? Yes.
Right.
Would it be best if they didn't have to do anything like that? Yes.
Right. No, I completely understand that. So, well, okay. So we've had a really good long conversation here, and I kind of want to wrap things up. So, ultimately, It sounds like to me that, again, my tinfoil hat is like, I trust no one. And, perhaps you should look at your security policy. You should look at your processes and ensure, again, that you're maintaining the consistent security, for your organization that makes sense. Right.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it's no longer, if it'll happen, it's when. And when it happens, you need to be prepared, or, some companies have gone out of business.
Right. Or it's more like, how do you, how do you mitigate it? So it's going to happen. How do you shut it down as quickly as possible?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
No. Oh yeah, no, because it's the scary part that you try to tell people in the security world or outside the security world is that, like, look, you're gonna get hacked. It's how you respond to the hack that makes all the difference. Like, if you can fall down and then get back up, that's okay. But if you fall down because of it, and we could use the example of the Sony hack, right? They were down for what, 6 months?
Yeah, it was a long time.
Yeah. And I mean, everything was down. Like, they were back to fax machines and legal pads.
That's insane. That's insanity.
Yeah.
So on that insane note, I think, what, we had such a great conversation today, Paul. Thank you as always for joining.
Awesome. This was fun.
And I know I knew you would like the trivia. So, and you've earned yourself 2 beers. So congratulations, sir.
All right.
All right. So on that note, until next time, go ahead and enjoy your 2 beers. And I think we could go ahead and wrap it up for another Ransomware Battleground. What? All right. Bye, guys.